Enjoying Dublin? Supposed to say yes.
Yes.
This is a town that can really pack away the style. Huh? I don't know if anybody knows that. Well, I'm Alex Urbelis. While Spain's getting ready here, Lieutenant team, I'm the General Counsel and CISO of ENS. Who's ENS? We get a lot of people here from our ENS ecosystem. I want to thank everybody who came out from the DAO, our supporters that are running here. That's here. I think that if you're going to watch this really historic partnership be announced, that isn't it? I think is really great. And who is ENFL? We are the OGs of Web3. And I know that might leave a bad taste in some of your mouths because there haven't been so many great actors in the Web3 space. But we are the only party, I believe, that has a protocol that is not only tested and true, but is actually trusted as well. We have the only trusted Web3 protocol for resolution. And it's something we're extraordinarily proud of, very protective of.
We're also the only party that, since the outset of ENS, has always respected the primacy of the DNS. In fact, I mean, Yogi Berra said it, you can look it up, it's in our Constitution, the ENS DAO Constitution, Article 4, has set forth the primacy of the DNS. And so we are very much committed to the responsible integration of Web 2 and Web 3. As Fred intimated in his remarks at the outset here, name collisions are a big problem for Web 3. We've been engaging with ICANN for quite a while now with the public commenting periods for the application guidebook, and took some really surprising positioning on name collisions, making sure that the integration of Web 2 and Web 3 is done carefully, slowly, and responsibly. We've been attending all of the ICANN meetings. We met D3 initially in Seattle earlier this year, and my God, have we come a long way in 6 months. We presented 2 weeks ago at DNS-OARC in Stockholm. We were invited to give a talk at the Registry Operators Workshop just a few weeks ago with Tom Barrett, whom you're going to hear from a little bit later on today at the Registrar's panel. But what I'm trying to make here in the point is that ENS is not your ordinary Web3 entity that has not been a great actor and player in this space. We've always been committed to acting responsibly. We share the vision of ICANN of having one world, one internet, and where all the things work together. That's what we're here to do, is to announce this really historic, great integration. It's amazing to see innovation like this happening in the DNS at such pace, and to work with teams like D3 and ENS where things actually get done and executed. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to my colleague, our head of growth, James Beck. Okay.
All right, so my name is James Beck. Thanks so much, Alex and Fred, of course, for inviting us, and Alex setting up the stage for kind of ENS and how we actually work with the DNS world. What we're going to be talking about is kind of building off of Fred's real call for why you'd want to tokenize a domain, and then talking about our recent integration and how those tokenized domains actually work with ENS. So, like Alex was saying, we really do believe in the DNS system, and we think of domains as the original digital identity on the internet. And when a lot of people hear ENS, and maybe only in the Web3 context, probably the first thing they think of is, oh, that's that thing where you can have your name.eth, and that represents your wallet. But more than your wallet, it represents your identity and all the apps that you use on-chain. And I'm going to be using terms like on-chain, and feel free to ask me afterwards if you have questions. But in general, this is not to sort of cast aspersions on how domains have kind of stalled in growth to usernames, but kind of compare the difference. Like DNS, ENS is a protocol that anyone can build on. It's different than a username system such as Facebook or even an email, in that it's an open protocol. Anyone can sort of inspect it, build on it. You can go to even our DAO, which is like a mini version of ICANN, in order to even get funding for an idea. But what ENS does as its core is it takes a 24-character hexadecimal address and resolves it as a human readable name. And just like IP address resolves to a DNS, we take this, we do forward and reverse resolution so that when you're connecting with, a wallet, you actually can have a name for that wallet and not fat finger your 24-character hexadecimal address. So how do we work well with DNS? Like Alex mentioned, it's in the constitution of ENS itself. So ENS was, by many ways, the first version of a sort of naming system on a blockchain. Ethereum is the first smart contract blockchain, which means more than Bitcoin, you can do and create programmable applications that use Ethereum for a settlement layer. But what's kind of core to that remark of not only working well with DNS, we do, if any registry owns a TLD, we actually grant control of that to the registry owner. And we can't create top-level domains, or must not create top-level domains, unless those domains have been granted authority by an ENS authority. So in a lot of ways, it's contrary to how some of the other actors in our space are working. We've been also working with DNS for a few years now. I think maybe a few years ago, some of you might have heard the GoDaddy integration. The aspect of it that we built was a gasless DNSSEC import, meaning you don't have to pay the sort of on-chain fee, the gas, in order to import your DNS name. But as Fred mentioned, it took him 9 clicks. It took 9 steps. It isn't the easiest thing to do, although we do see people using it. And so kind of what got us really interested in and started talking to D3 and thinking more about the Doma protocol is if you can actually tokenize these domains to begin with and then give them ENS capabilities, you can avoid and you can skip DNSSEC. So maybe you saw this last week, but we were pretty excited to announce this partnership. Essentially it's starting out on testnet, and I'll take you through a short demo. But what is interesting about it is all of the domains that become tokenized via the Doma protocol are going to inherit ENS capabilities. And I'm going to kind of explain why that even matters. So, first to go through what changes. In general, DNS will still work within Web3 if you've imported your name via DNSSEC. What you'll inherit are things that ENS has built since the beginning, which is the ability to create a profile. You can, as you imagine a link tree, you can associate your social media handles, but .eth isn't just Ethereum. You can also add other coin types and records. So you could have a Bitcoin address, you could have a Solana address. And where that matters is in some of our integrations, which I'll talk about. But the ownership of the domain that's tokenized is still sort of verified on-chain by Doma. And what it does allow, though, is for people who have a .com or a domain that they really care about, it allows them to bring that identity into the Web3 context. And you could do even cool things like having multiple stakeholders or fractional ownership of a domain, which is kind of why I'm excited by the concept of DomainFi too. But yeah, don't worry, DNSSEC will still work as intended. We just think that this is the lowest friction pathway to enable more tokens or more domains to be tokenized and more domains to be used in Web3 context to send, to receive, or to connect to different applications. So yeah, the .eth is the original, it's the original username for Web3 in my opinion. There are, 1.6 million names that have been issued and, or 1.6 million current holders. There's actually been over 3 million names that have been issued. And I think a lot of people really associate it with Ethereum, and that makes sense. ENS came out of the Ethereum Foundation. It's an open source project and it has .eth in the name. But what people kind of forget is that you can actually associate all these different blockchain networks with your name. And where that matters is as we've started integrating with more fintech companies, with more wallets, with more traditional payment applications, it's actually been quite interesting using your profile, using your .eth to send things like Bitcoin. So if you're, an American and you use Venmo, or if you're international and you use PayPal, go to the crypto section of the app. And if you have, USDC, a stable coin, or if you have Bitcoin, you can actually put in your .eth name and then it'll resolve to your Bitcoin address or your Solana address and so on. We think of it as like a universal profile for all these different chains. And the other cool thing about anything to do with a blockchain is that it's, you end up having everything on chain, as we say, which means it's all inspectable. And so you can see that our protocol makes, $13 million last year. All of this is public information because it's all happening on a blockchain. But also interestingly is like we've integrated with over 750 apps. So technically, if you're building any sort of consumer application in blockchain, one of the first things you want to figure out is a username system. I like the example of Coinbase. Coinbase is now, a massive publicly traded company. There's sort of the way that in the United States, at least, most people get onboarded from, fiat currencies into cryptocurrencies. And increasingly, even though they're a public company, they've been placing all their bets on doing everything on chain. So instead of their typical, order books that are centralized in their exchange, they want to use decentralized exchanges. They want to move on chain as much as possible. But did they decide to create their own username system? No, they actually used the ENS protocol and built a base name system that is already based on the ENS protocol. And it's because we have a really active developer community. There's people here who are here in this audience that literally were interested in the ENS protocol and started building on it and creating core resources and primitives based on ENS that I think is what creates a really active developer community. And it's the reason why an app, instead of creating their own username system, would rather, base it on ENS because it's so integrated with the rest of the space. And here's an example. We have some financial applications, Kraken. These are, exchanges largely, but also some household names that you may have heard of, like PayPal and Venmo. And then on the infrastructure side, this is where a name resolves. So Google and Brave allow for a .eth name to resolve to an address if you Google it. But then, these are all blockchains in case you know, Base, Optimism, ZK Sync. And then finally on the DNS side, so, we worked with GoDaddy on the gasless DNSSEC import, but we're now excited to be working with D3 and the Doma protocol. We think it's actually a step function improvement. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The announcement, you said it's available now, but it's available now on testnet. So we're still going to be going through some testing with multiple different types of domains. The one I'm going to do is a .football domain. So we're sort of using TLDs that, are less disrupted if we're making some changes. But the next step, would go to a DAO vote. The DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization that governs ENS, would sort of vote on this. But as you saw from our constitution, if you are the rightful owner of a TLD, it's pretty clearly going to be yours to operate. We're also building our own layer 2 network. It's called Namechain. We're excited about it. It's going to be really fast. It's going to be cheap. It's going to be better than, doing every sort of confirmation on Ethereum. And then, of course, there's the upcoming ICANN GTLD round. So we're really excited by, D3 and others in bringing a lot of these domains on chain, both new domains, new GTLDs. And we think there's a lot of interesting endings that could be really relevant in the Web3 context. So Interstellar, this is, as you can see in the top right corner, it says testnet. So this is on Ethereum's Sepolia testnet now today, but pretty soon we'll be on Ethereum mainnet and then eventually Namechain and Base and other networks. But in this example, you have this wallet address, 0x78, and this is a D3 internal developer wallet address. They have future98.football as a domain. And as you can see right there, there's right away to add ENS resolution. So immediately, if you've tokenized your .football TLD, you have access to what we had mentioned before, 750 plus apps in the Web3 ecosystem. That means when you're signing into a base app or a decentralized finance app or an NFT marketplace, you don't have to create a new username. You can use future98.football. There's going to be a transaction. There's a little bit of a learning curve when you have to get a wallet and understand what you're doing with an EOA, but it's pretty simple. And then after you submit the transaction, you have an ENS name. So what you can do is you can view it on ENS, and this is our own app. And there you see it, manager 0x78C. But from anywhere where ENS is integrated, likely would also show up future98.football when the owner of that wallet signs up or logs in to an app. So it kind of becomes, if you can imagine kind of the significance of this, if you have a business and it's a .com and you really want everything you do to be associated with that brand, with that original username, as we were describing a DNS being, that means that you can use that username for all these different apps and you can log in with it. And it is your sort of identity following you around. But it also means that, if there's a whole new DomainFi ecosystem coming up, whether it's, multiple people owning a domain, it becomes a lot easier because all of the places where ENS has been integrated will be supported by this tokenized domain. And so you can see the owner of football is Doma, and they have a few testing, future98.football. Before I go to the last slide, I'm going to invite Alex on stage, and he's got a little fun giveaway for everyone. Thanks.
What's up, James and Alex? Thanks again for having us here. My name's Alex, but that's my given name. My actual identity is Slobodnik, and that's what the giveaway is about. Anyone who doesn't have an ENS name, there you go. Anyone who doesn't have an ENS name can now get one. Just message me on WhatsApp, and I'll provide it. And again, thanks everyone for hosting us. And remember, ENS is more than DAI. It is a protocol that enables identity for the world. Thanks.